Hey, looks like I'm live. Yep, I'm live. Yeah. Well, so anyway, here. I decided I would take a little time and do a little live stream video, mainly because I had some quiet time to myself here, and I'm not sure if I like the angle of that very much. Maybe a little more like this, a little more like that. Yeah, yeah. Any better? Not really. No. Yeah. Oh well, good enough. Good enough. Good enough. In fact, considering my connection speed, this is probably a complete pixelated mess anyway. And for some reason, lately, when I've last so many times I've attempted to live stream, it always broadcasts the image backwards. And I didn't see an option to change that, and it doesn't really matter that much anyway. Yeah, the other day I was doing some live streaming, and I was just inspired to ramble on. That was about it. Partly because I wanted to talk about Steem, the cryptocurrency, and Lino, the another cryptocurrency. I shouldn't say the other cryptocurrency because there's more than two of them. And also, I was watching a lot of videos comparing Star Trek to Star Wars. If there was like a Star Trek versus Star Wars crossover, and I was inspired to ramble on about stuff like that. And at the moment, I'm just inspired to ramble on about just about anything really. Mainly because I was thinking about recording a video, and I didn't want to use up space on the various devices that I use to record stuff. Space management is a nuisance. Everything fills up data, and you don't really want to delete stuff. I don't really want to move stuff around. So this is a lazy way for me to do a video. Yeah, that's YouTube. That's YouTube. The lazy way to do a video. Now, if only I could remember what I wanted to talk about. I don't know. I could ramble on some more about Star Trek and Star Wars. Could ramble on about various things like Steemit and Whale Shares and DTube and DLive and BitChute and YouTube and whatever. Perhaps I could get to that. Um, um, I know one time when I did a live stream, it was somebody who followed some of my stuff. It was actually a seems to be a very good person. Had pointed out, referenced that the Super Retrocade is out. That was almost a year ago. That was like 3/4 of a year ago. And when I recorded that live stream, I kind of deleted it. I mean, I saved it to my own computer, my own storage space, but I didn't like the live stream simply because I don't know, I just kind of rambled too much, but I always do that anyway. So what's the difference? Really, what's the difference? And as it is right now, I actually didn't get a whole lot of sleep, and I am caffeinating myself. So I may just ramble incoherently now, even more so than usual. But brought up the Super Retrocade. That's something that I find interesting that I never got around to taking a look at. Never got around to. The thing I really want to get is there's a Commodore 64 mini console coming out, a console version of an old computer, miniaturized. It's a Commodore 64, so it's perfect. That's just perfect. So that's something that interests me. The Super Retrocade is something that I known of for almost a year. And that's something else interesting. Sometimes good advice comes up. Of course, it is the internet, so of course, across the world, not only there's the various good people out there, there's also the occasional lunatic. And unfortunately, sometimes the lunatics aren't that far away when they go on with their incoherent, strange hostility. But the internet is haunted with lunatics and crazy people. And some of them are just like the next community over, so it's like, wow. What a weird place. But the idea of the internet being haunted by lunatics. That could be my excuse for a Halloween video. It's something I've been doing is I've been uploading some of my old Halloween videos to various video streaming sites, and because it's October, getting closer to Halloween. So that's my thought. Beware the internet! It is haunted by crazy people. Woo! Yeah. The internet is haunted by crazy people, and it's not like it's supernatural. Well, I suppose somebody could be so crazy they're supernatural. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Let's see. Actually, let's see. That's west, but it'd be the road curves and. Ooh. Yeah. Well, okay. That's concerning. Anyway, so that would be a note to oneself to wrong one. To adjust the defenses for psychokinetic psychopaths. Anyway, so what else could I talk about? Star Trek Discovery. That's something good to ramble on about. Why not? Why not ramble on about Star Trek Discovery? Because apparently it's coming back for season 2, and that's spooky. Actually, no, it's shitty. It's shitty. It's not very Halloween themed at all, and it's not coming back in October. Though there's those shit treks. Short treks. Of which at least one has already aired, where they took the character Tilly. Is that her name? That's her name. One of the few characters on the show that people actually kind of liked, was actually a little bit likable, and they put her in a story that was pretty much irredeemable. In fact, the first time I watched it, I saw a few after the first time I watched it, I saw a few reviews of it, and apparently I had a better experience than most other people who watched it. Because the first time I watched it, I started to watch it, and, I saw some of the absurdities of it. I saw the beginning of it. I saw that being that somehow get on the ship. I saw them encounter Tilly. I saw the absurd scene where the food synthesizers acted all haunted and started spitting food items across the cafeteria, whatever. I saw that part. I saw them start to talk, and then I fell asleep. So as a result, I had a better experience watching that than most other people I've seen review it online. Then later I actually saw it. Then, I watched it later. There was more than one airing of it on the Space Channel. In fact, just because I thought I might want to do a review of it, though there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, I hooked up the DVD recorder, and the DVD recorder didn't want to watch it. No, the DVD recorder decided it would record a plain gray screen, which is fine because I wasn't really missing anything, but whatever. So I did see it, and you know what? It makes me think. I think everybody hates Star Trek Discovery for good reason, and but I think perhaps everybody has it all wrong. But it still sucks, because when I look at Star Trek Discovery, it's like it's so screwed up. People seem to miss some of the stuff that's screwed up. For example, a lot of people complain about the usage of holograms. That's like a technology they shouldn't have at that time. And it's like, they could have it, but why would they? You know, it's like a more inconvenient variation of a view screen, or even taking a pad like the little computer pads they have in Star Trek. You know, like even just picking up a pad and talking to somebody on a screen. You know, like nothing. Nothing could be more awkward than what they're portraying, because they'll often have somebody just walking around the room like they're there, but they're a hologram. Okay, so does that mean that person has an entire holographic room, or an area that they could go into that is going to display to them everything that they're looking at while they're a hologram, which is what you would think they would have to have, but you never see that. It's like somebody watched Star Wars and thought, is this Star Trek? Darth Vader and the Emperor are talking to each other with holograms. So why can't our starship captains talk to each other with holograms? Isn't that a good idea? It's like they're actually there. We should act like they're actually there. You know, it's like people are like, it broke canon. No, it didn't break canon. It's just stupid. Now, granted, in Deep Space Nine, they were hooking up a similar technology on the Defiant, which was more rationally implemented. But I didn't look at it and think they couldn't do that at an earlier time. In fact, it would stand to reason that if they tried it in one time period, they may have tried it at a different time period, and a different time period before that, and a different time period after that, because it's stupid, so it should go away. They want to fix season 2, they'll just talk about how that fad of overusing holograms just went away. Because as communication technology goes, you're better off turning around, talking into a view screen than that absurd mess. So, when people talk about it breaking canon, it's like, no. That's not what broke canon. Not the usage of holograms in stupid and inappropriate ways. But something that could even have something else that is even less important to the plot lines being portrayed in Star Trek Discovery, but actually is a bigger stress, something harder to reconcile with existing canon, would be the usage of force fields. Now, force fields have been widely used in Star Trek. And definitely in Star Trek, the original series, the deflector shields were a form of force field. And in the brig, they had a force field that, held people back. They had force fields, okay. But the level and degree to which they trusted and implemented the usage of these force fields, well, they weren't quite to the Discovery, which is supposed to take place a decade before Star Trek, the original series. Is kind of using the force fields in a more advanced, more next generation kind of way. You see, the brig might be supposed to have force fields. The deflector shields might supposed to be force fields. But anytime a shuttle landed or left a Constitution-class Starship Enterprise during the decade of the original series, the episodes of the original series, during that time period, they had to decompress the shuttle bay and then repressurize it before anybody could get in or out of the shuttles, before they could open the door, before whatever. They didn't have a force field holding the atmosphere into the ship. And if there was a breach, a hull breach, I'm pretty sure at some point there was a reference that hull breaches were to be handled by emergency bulkheads as opposed to force fields. So, when Star Trek Discovery portrayed pretty much every starship as having a force field in its shuttle bay and holes ripped open and the atmosphere being held in by force fields. Well, one time you really see that, it's the brig, so I could give that a pass. But all the ships, including some very old ships, have been upgraded with all sorts of force fields for holding in the atmosphere, for keeping the shuttle bays from decompressing while shuttles enter and exit, all that stuff. Okay. All the ships have either have that or have been upgraded with that. That's fine. But a decade later, the ship of the line, the top of their technology, their most advanced ship, the Constitution class starship, isn't going to have it. So why would the Crossfield class USS Discovery have it? Why would the Sensho, if I pronounced that correctly, the ship that actually looked really cool. I actually really liked that ship from the first 2 episodes. And they didn't really destroy it. They just kind of left it abandoned. It was kind of destroyed, kind of wrecked, and they just left it abandoned. Coolest ship in the show. Like, the holograms, you can reconcile that as an idiotic fad that should go away, okay? I mean, it's supposed to be the future. They should have holograms of some sort. This isn't stuff that's nearly as advanced as the holodeck and Next Generation, So the holograms, I don't have a problem with the holograms. I think they're inappropriate and stupid, but I don't feel like they broke canon. So there are complaints I could have with it, but not to the point where I'd say, yeah, it's defying canon. The force fields, on the other hand, that's stretching it a little too much, I think. Of course, everybody has their own attitude on canon, and I think that sometimes it becomes the most crazy conversations out there. For example, I'll see some people online going on about that the Enterprise shouldn't have been canon because the Suliban had a cloaking device and nobody ever saw a cloaking device. And all you have to reconcile is the fact that Kirk and Spock were surprised that the Romulans cloaked and wondered out loud for one line, how did they disappear like that? And basically indicated they were surprised that Romulan ship was going to cloak. And then Spock started talking about a theory which is disturbingly low tech and fails to explain really a lot. But it came up with a theory as if he already knew how the cloaking device worked. But basically, out loud, they wondered, about it's like, how did that ship disappear like that? And then Spock just makes a comment about it, And then later, they spend most of the episode far less concerned about the cloaking device and far more concerned about the plasma torpedoes. And yes. So, based on that one time Kirk was surprised by the Romulans having a cloaking device, Enterprise should not be canon because the Suliban had a crude cloaking technology that probably wouldn't disappear on Kirk's sensors 100 years later. It's like, no, that if you can't reconcile that, I probably can't help you. But on the other hand, maybe those same people have any trouble reconciling that the animated series had like force field belts that allowed people to walk around in space without a spacesuit, despite the fact just a few years prior and 100 years later, they'd all still be using spacesuits. It's like, that's, that's a lot of people just rationalize what they want to rationalize, and that's a large part of it. I think people looked at Discovery as being horrible, and they're like, the holograms ruined everything, and it's like, yeah, the show was horrible, but the holograms are just one of the most visibly noticeable things that didn't ruin anything. The force fields are the big stretch, I think, if I were to compare two things. But Discovery is just full of crap, basically. Um, and, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for, the Paramount, CBS, whoever's going to run Star Trek to really recover from this. Because when people were complaining about Star Trek Voyager online, and I was kind of one of them, I was pretty disappointed with Voyager. I noticed a lot of people wouldn't stop complaining when Enterprise came out, and I was like, wow, this show was actually way better done than Voyager, far smarter, and finally gives us, an origin story for a lot of Star Trek stuff. And the praise, it took years for the praise to finally outweigh the complaints, and by then, Star Trek was under the control of CBS and got canceled. So it's like the best Star Trek show ever ended up unfortunately canceled, and the fan base was just finally coming out from underneath like this strange, nasty complaints that were just kind of like it's like they were, was like it was already set up to be hated. Next Generation suffered from the same thing. If you look up a lot of stuff about people talking about Next Generation when it first came out, it had a lot of traditional Star Trek fans mocking it and putting it down and that. But back then there wasn't the internet. Deep Space Nine, to a degree or other, suffered from something similar. Largely based around the fact it took place on a space station rather than legitimate criticisms. But with Deep Space Nine, it was a little softer, probably because Next Generation already had people accepting the idea of new and different Star Trek shows. And if somebody didn't like the idea of a Star Trek show being on a starbase, well, they'd just keep watching the Next Generation and then later Voyager. In fact, when Voyager started, I found like the writing for it already seemed that first season of Voyager was one of the first times I really saw Star Trek writing go distinctly downhill when you compare it to the last season of Next Generation, or what was going on with Deep Space Nine at the same time. And I found Voyager at first seemed to get a pretty good free pass. Like, there were a few things Voyager did that I just thought were absurd and just not good storytelling. And it felt like it got a free pass on a lot of that. Like, people just kind of accepted it and moved on. But there weren't as many people on the internet, so it's hard to really say what the reaction would be. By the time Voyager went off the air, everybody was on the internet, and everybody was complaining about everything Star Trek that was currently being made. And I noticed something similar with Star Trek 2009. It made a lot of money at the box office, and it seemed like it was kind of like the opposite. People didn't want to complain about it. But it was as dumb as a Transformers movie. Well, live action Transformers movie anyway. I mean, it was like bad. And I watched it, I was like, holy crap, how did people get through this? And years later, it's kind of like this. When it's popular to defecate on something, then nobody's going to want to praise it, unfortunately. And when it's popular to praise something, nobody's going to want to defecate on it. So it's like, if something's good, the people that hate it, they're going to be like, oh, I don't want to say my complaints. And then when something is widely disliked, then the complaints really come out, and the people that are impressed by something are going to be afraid to say it. And that's something I noticed a lot with a lot of science fiction franchises, a lot of stuff that gets discussed on the internet. And I found Star Trek suffered from that. That when the quality went up, it was always a delay before people would acknowledge it. And when the quality went down, there was like a delay before people would complain about it. And well, with Discovery just sucks. So I mean, people were pretty cynical of Discovery right from the start. So if Discovery had done a good job, it probably still would have gotten a lot of complaints from certain people, uh, but it wasn't good. It was bad. Another discussion, though, about Discovery. I saw some people reference it as a problem, other people didn't. The scale and the size of ships. If they change the size of the Constitution class starships, then that's just stupid. But every other ship, especially the Senshu, I forget how you pronounce it. The Walker class starship. Walker is a name that seems easier to remember exactly how it was pronounced. I like the Walker class starship. That was something in the show that I liked. Says nothing about the plot. The plot line in the episodes it was featured in was horrible. Says nothing about the show in general, other than the fact that was a cool design. Too bad it was wasted on one of the worst Star Trek TV shows ever, and then they only used it for about 2 episodes. Lovely. The Walker, not even pronouncing Walker, Walker. Not even pronounced Walker class. I'll stop throwing that to my throat. Not even pronounced Walker class starship correctly. Anyway, the Walker class starship. It's a design I liked. It looked more primitive than the Constitution class. It looked more junky. Looked more like stuff was just kind of like bolted together, kind of like the NX did compared to the Constitution class. Because the Constitution class was extremely smooth, which makes sense. Just about everything in the ship is going to be inside the hull, unless it needs to be outside of the hull. Because if you're going to repair something, you don't want to go outside of the ship to do it. You know. With the NX, it kind of had this look to it like it was more bolted together, that you might actually have to go outside to repair something, which actually happened, where they could only access certain things at certain times by putting on a spacesuit and going out and fixing stuff. This ship, looked more advanced than the NX class, but you could kind of tell that it predated the Constitution class. And I liked that about it. It was a cool looking ship overall. But a lot of people had a problem with its size because it was too big. And I thought, actually, its size kind of makes sense. Because in later episodes, before anybody ever really figured out how large the ship was, because I think it was when they released models of the ship that people finally found out that what its scale was supposed to be compared to other Star Trek ships. And then they looked at it and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. This size compared to a shuttle pod or its shuttle bay and its windows and stuff like that. People did the measurements and it looked like when the model came out and referenced the scale of it that it all was correct. That this ship was, as some people would say, too big. But I think it makes sense for it to be a big ship in the context of the story. It was because the captain of it, Giorgio, or is it Giorgio? Anyway, the captain, one of the few characters in Star Trek Discovery I actually liked, Giorgio. I don't even remember how to pronounce her name. They used her for like 2 episodes. Then it was like the evil version of her in the later episodes, and I don't count the evil version as the same character. But I liked her. She was a pretty cool character, the captain. And it was referenced that she was kind of like a well-decorated, well-respected, just regarded as a good captain. That's what I'm trying to get at. A well-respected captain. A well-respected captain with a really positive history. One of the outstanding examples of Star Trek captains. That was indicated in later episodes, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the way it was indicated all along, but it was definitely noticeable by later episodes. So why would one of the most outstanding captains that Starfleet had get a ship that's probably half a century old? I mean, you'd think they'd put her in the most advanced starship that's going out there on the most important missions. Well, it's probable that when the ship was built, it was built as a ship of the line, probably one of their biggest, most powerful ships that would carry the most research labs, carry the most hardware around, just the biggest ship possible. Um, that would be built to take on the greatest tasks possible. And while it might not be the most impressive ship that Starfleet would have now, it would stand to reason that was probably just built to be a big, multi-purpose, really effective ship that could travel far, act independently, and just be put to really good use. So it actually would make sense that if this is supposed to be a really old ship, with a really old ship design, with a captain that's very highly regarded, that they're basically putting her in this ship because, it might not be top of the line anymore, but it's still impressive. It still serves a lot of purpose. So that's the impression I got from it being a big ship, that it kind of made sense. And plus, back then, if you wanted to add more features to a ship, it would stand to reason. If it's a cruder technology, then you would go with bigger. So they probably needed a bigger ship anyway back then, because some people say smaller equals more advanced, some people say larger equals more advanced, but one, we're dealing with a fictional universe. It could, and if you want to be realistic with it, it could go either way. And there's nothing about it being a large ship that tells me anything about the advancement of the people that made it, other than how many resources they were willing to put into building it. And resource usage is not a sign of advancement. It's just a sign of how many resources they were willing to put into it, So actually, I kind of like that it turns out that ship was a bigger ship. At first I was like, it's going to be a big, bulky ship. It's not going to be, a small, agile ship. When you actually realize how large it is, if they put it in a video game, it's going to be one of the larger, more ponderous ships, It's not going to be like one of those little fast attack ships. Like if you're playing Star Trek The Next Generation, Birth of the Federation, you send in a couple Miranda class and Oberth class starships and Defiant class starships, and they move around really, really quickly. It's like, well, this thing's going to be a large, slow ship, big target, not very fast. But when you stop and think about it, it's like, this does kind of make sense. This does. So that's not something that I would have a problem with. Now, on the other hand, something that is a problem and everybody already discusses is the magic mushroom drive, because that doesn't fit Star Trek at all. Yeah, they're probably going to come up with some sort of reason on why it had to go away before Star Trek the original series. But as far as I'm concerned, the only way that they can excuse the magic mushroom drive is to turn out that this is an alternate universe. The magic mushrooms that grow across subspace and create the links for that form of instantaneous travel, to just say that this is a universe that's different because of that, and it doesn't exist in every other universe, and the multiverse of Star Trek we saw prior to this just doesn't have that. That's the only way they can reconcile that, as far as I'm concerned. The magic mushroom drive, it's a pretty big stretch to have mushrooms growing across the vacuum of space. I think it's even weirder to have a network of fungus growing across subspace. Yeah, so, I mean, that's something that doesn't really work very well with Star Trek. And as far as I'm concerned, if they want to explain that in Star Trek Discovery, and they should, but the only way they could do that is by visiting a parallel reality, which is the reality of Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek the original series, Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, to visit that reality, and then have it turn out what makes that reality different is what reality is connected to this weird fungus network and the other one is not. Because that fungus network is absurd. Now, granted, real science kind of tells us that there are networks out there of funguses that connect to plants and create symbiotic relationships that both benefit the plants and the fungus. After a billion years of evolution, life on this planet can find ways to coexist. And so it's not really that surprising that there can be a symbiotic relationship between plants and fungus, and it might even form networks that benefit all connected, all plugged into the fungus network, the mushroom kingdom. Yeah. That's all fine, but I suppose Star Trek could take it the step farther and say that this is the basis of where beings like the Q evolved from, or the Organians evolved from, that this is just a fungus that evolved beyond normal space-time, whatever. But still, I think they pushed it way too far. The fungus network in Star Trek Discovery is being used kind of like the Force in Star Wars. But as much as people whine and complain about midichlorians, all midichlorians meant was the Force was either generated by or has a tendency to influence and tap into, the organelles that exist within people's cells, like mitochondria. So either midichlorians are alien mitochondria, or they are an alien word for mitochondria, or they're a special type of mitochondria that have somehow been... Maybe the midichlorian count is actually the number of mitochondria that are affected by the Force and tap into it. However they want to explain that, there's obviously a distinct similarity. And is this still functioning? Yeah. The connection seemed to be messing up there for a minute. Although I know that I'm seeing a higher resolution image than the rest of the world is, but that seems to still be working. Yeah, so mitochondria and midichlorians are, if not the same thing, they're somewhat akin. They're somewhat similar. They're, it could just be an alien version of mitochondria that exists in that galaxy. Whatever. So what was literally being said, which really wasn't explained all that well to Star Wars fans, is when they came up with mitochondria, they were literally saying the Force is connected to life energy, which is kind of what they're saying all along. Now, I would have rationalized it as just being like an energy connected to all life, and then I would have basically came up with some sort of idea that it would involve brain waves or something like that, because it would be some form of psychokinetic energy. It is something that should be somewhat explained. Like when people talk about, well, they should have just left it mysterious and unexplainable. It's like, yeah, then why not just not ever use it again? I mean, that's just fucking stupid. You're going to flesh out a universe, you kind of want details, But that said, this makes it a little less like brain waves going through space, controlling things. This is actually a bit more, this actually is a little bit more, I'm trying to think of the word for it, a little bit more zen, a little bit more like life, the force of life flowing throughout the galaxy. Because if this energy is connected to something that is similar to mitochondria, then that means it's literally life energy. Your mitochondria are the organelles within your cells that do things like take in oxygen and glucose, and sometimes fatty acids, they blah, 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 whatever chemical process, proton gradient, and you get ATP, which is what you use as biological energy. Your mitochondria are what literally is your energy source in your cells. I think there was actually reference to mitochondria in Star Trek at one point where they referred to them as like the warp core of the cell. Well, Star Wars equivalent of mitochondria is midichlorians, and that it was just a way of saying that the Force equals life force, which was kind of in its own way almost like a naturalistic, spiritual kind of way of being science fiction-y, but still kind of naturalistically spiritual, sort of. I don't even know what words to use for it, but I think if you don't get the point, then you never will, and I've rambled on about enough. So, you have the Force in Star Wars being connected to all life and flowing throughout the galaxy, and you could also compare that to, like I said, the Force in Star Wars, comparing that to like in the Star Trek universe, or the Discovery universe, because I don't think that's the regular Star Trek universe, because there's just too much differences. But be it the fungus drive or the Force and midichlorians in Star Wars, you end up with something that's almost like energy fields flowing throughout space, and which actually is kind of easily referenceable to something kind of like psychokinetic energy in Ghostbusters. And anyway, in which case in Ghostbusters it's actually portrayed, especially in the first movie, as an energy, almost like a cosmic energy that was concentrated by the building that Ivo Shandor built, which is kind of interesting. So if you look at Star Trek, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, be it energy-based beings, Force ghosts and extra-dimensional gods, it's all kind of the same thing. And with Star Trek in the past, you did have like the field of energy generated by the galaxy that created a barrier around the galaxy. So there already was like a weird energy field to the Star Trek galaxy, which still seemed better than the magic mushroom drive that connects to anywhere in the universe. You know, they had this magic mushroom drive that could go anywhere in the fucking universe. You know, and they used it. They used it for war. They used it to fight the Klingons when the Klingons attacked them. Why didn't they explore? I know what you're saying. I know what some people would say to that. It's like, well, I think it's a little more important that they stop the Klingons from destroying them. Yeah, I know. That's important. But they can go anywhere in the universe. The first thing I would do is I'd try to figure out where they could go to get the kind of resources they might want for fighting the Klingons. Like, you'd want that ship to be around to fight the Klingons, but as soon as you can go anywhere in the universe, Starfleet should be going over all its records of advanced civilizations and potential helpful allies, and it's like just looking for anything they could use as a weapon. I know the character Lorca had a stockpile of absurd weapons that probably weren't going to do anything against the Klingons, but it was his kind of thing. There's that, but I don't know. I think if you could have went anywhere in the universe, there would have been a lot of things they could have done in addition to fighting the Klingons that in the long run would have helped them fight the Klingons. I don't know. But then again, I suppose, I don't know. It just seems like there would be plot lines where if they were so desperate that they might start trying to make agreements with species that are rumored to exist like really far away. I don't know. I suppose they probably wouldn't be able to purchase any weapons more advanced than they already had. But that's just a thought. Like, it just seemed like as soon as they had the magic mushroom drive, they used it a couple times to fight the Klingons because it was only so many episodes. But it just seemed like something like there could have been a plot line where they wanted to make contact with somebody somewhere that's rumored just, um, you know. But I suppose that's that could be a plot line, but it just wasn't a very one of the. Well, let's face it. If the Star Trek Discovery writing team decided to tackle that idea that there was something somewhere out in the galaxy that could help them win the war, they'd probably pick something that something really absurd, something that would. Yeah, I don't know. I, it just seemed like a both a broken show and a wasted show. And Star Trek Discovery really doubled down on everything it did wrong. Um, for example, a lot of people kind of thought, you know what? They say that they've rewritten the last few episodes to address the continuity errors. You know, so this whole Klingon war thing is going to go away. They're going to find a way to do it. I know what they're going to do. They're going to use time travel. And I thought to myself, you know, that could work. And a lot of people were talking about that. That around the final few episodes of the show, they'd probably come back from the mirror universe. And because people were predicting they'd end up in the mirror universe based on online rumors, or at least a reference to the mirror universe that came online. But it was like a common thought. I think even before the episodes where they went to the mirror universe, I think it was a common thought that, you know, they'll probably come back from the mirror universe and they'll accidentally time travel back to the beginning of the battle and they'll set everything right. And that'll give them a full do-over. They'll have like this big dramatic storyline, but they'll end up turning the timeline into something that's more appropriate to Star Trek. And I thought, yeah, you know, that makes sense. And even I was thinking that's what they were going to do. You know, that was a common thought that at the end of the season they would invoke time travel, most likely by accident, but end up in the position to stop the war before it happened. That's not what they did, though. They did the exact opposite. They used time travel to come back to the war too late by accident. Didn't re-invoke the time travel to fix things. They just stayed where they were and in time, and the war was already lost. So instead of what could have fixed the idea of having a war with the Klingons too absurdly early, at a time when tension should be just building up between the Federation and the Klingon Empire, that eventually both sides would be eager to fight because they're so fed up with each other, you end up with a Federation that lost, what was it, a third of Starfleet and 20-some% of Federation territory. So basically you had the Klingons kicking the Federation's ass in a war, which would really change the political tone of the galaxy. It would give the Federation a reason to want to fight the Klingons again, but only if they were sure that they totally outpowered the Klingons next time. Because they might want to take back some of their territory and some of the worlds with Federation citizens subjugated by the Klingons, because the Klingons aren't known for letting go of territory. You know, like that whole war, like, really screwed up the whole politics of the galaxy, which wasn't just a plot line for one episode, but multiple episodes. And it ended with the Federation basically losing. For all intents and purposes, the Federation lost. There's that bit at the end where the Klingons just kind of surrendered and went away, you know, or whatever it was they really did. But for all intents and purposes, the Federation lost. And not only did they get their asses handed to them by the Klingons, the Klingons like kicked their ass. You know, it's not that the Klingons. It's not that it's like a bad idea to have a story where the Klingons kick the Federation's ass. That could be doable. It just depends on when you do it. I mean, if it took place like sometime around the Romulan War, you know, shortly after, you know, like a decade or two after, you know, like which would be shortly after the founding of the Federation, you know, as long as you leave enough of the Federation left to rebuild and grow into what it is in the original series, you could do a war story, a battle between the Klingons and the Federation, but that just didn't really seem to fit at all. And instead of, like a lot of people were predicting, oh, they're going to fix it with time travel. They seem to be acknowledging that this is wrong and the fans aren't willing to reconcile something that abhorrently inconsistent with Star Trek and a TV show that's pretending to be Star Trek. So we're going to have to fix things, you know? They're going to, you know, and how do they fix things? They didn't. They doubled down on the problem. They ended the war, but they ended it with the result, the worst possible result. There's nothing about Star Trek Discovery that isn't just wrong, just completely wrong. Such as the character that was raised on Vulcan seems to have considered herself someone who embraced Vulcan culture and then just won't do anything logical. Committed mutiny to attack a Klingon ship because they were afraid a war would start if they didn't. So they started a war by attacking a Klingon ship. That's so bloody fucking stupid. And it's kind of like people were talking about the character being a Mary Sue, and I kind of get why they think that. Here's my thoughts on why the character Michael Brennan is not a Mary Sue. They're accidentally not a Mary Sue, because they are kind of written like they're trying to use her like a Mary Sue, because everything that's important tends to happen around her and be because of her and so forth. So yeah, there is some legitimacy to the idea that she's a Mary Sue. But let's just freeze. I think this thing just froze. That's not a good sign. Oh well, this video wasn't going that well anyway. But anyway, in case it didn't freeze, I'll just continue my point. The character, there is some grounds to calling her a Mary Sue, because everything revolves around her. She solves everything, etc., whatever. But here's why she never felt like a Mary Sue to me. She was stupid. She was stupid. Now, granted, a lot of that was because the writing was stupid, but she's an idiot. She started a war with the Klingons, doing stuff that every audience member would start a war with the Klingons. And it wasn't just that they didn't know much about the Klingons and they were trying to treat the Klingons like a normal alien species, and like there was going to be some sort of quirk about the Klingons that you knew was going to cause a war because you know how the Klingons work because you've seen Star Trek before. No, not something that could be kind of excusable like that. She started a war with the Klingons doing something stupid that anybody would think it's going to cause a war, or at least cause a conflict. I mean, how absurdly stupid that was. And her motivation was an emotional appeal that she felt if she didn't do it, she was going to lose everybody she cared about. Didn't make sense. Of course, she was taking advice from a Vulcan who told her one of the most absurdly implausible Star Trek concepts. Well, I wouldn't say implausible. One of the most inappropriate Star Trek concepts. It took the Vulcans, who first encountered Klingons, and the Klingons blew up a Vulcan ship. So every time the Vulcans saw Klingons after that, the Vulcans blew up Klingon ships until the Klingons sued for peace. What? How? I mean, first off, the Klingons. If somebody came into Klingon space with everything that's been written about Klingons in the past, if somebody came into Klingon space and started blowing up Klingon ships, the Klingons would consider themselves at war. Their whole culture would muster around the idea of just blowing up the enemy, fighting the enemy to the death because they've been so offended by people coming in and committing an act of war against them. Everything about the Klingons would ever written in Star Trek would indicate that the Klingons would be highly agitated by that, and you could probably motivate the whole culture to just go to war with whoever was doing that to them. The Vulcans, on the other hand, if a Vulcan ship was destroyed during first contact with the Klingons, the Vulcans most likely would try to figure out what happened. They'd probably try to make further communication the next time. They might try to stay away from that species, view them as hostile and not appropriate to communicate with or to have anything to do with. Or they might further try to communicate with them, but come in force to find out what happened. If there was a communication error, if there was some sort of unknown offense that could have taken place, if there was any even error in the weapon systems or sensors of either ship to make the Klingons think that they were under attack when the Vulcans had no intention of attacking the Klingons. You know, there's all kinds of things that would be a logical way of approaching the issue. And given Vulcan culture, which tends to frown upon war and conflict as a first choice, the idea that after the first Vulcan ship was blown up by the Klingons, the Vulcans just opened up a policy of, you see a Klingon, you blow it up until they sue for peace, does not fit the species. So while this idea not only doesn't fit any concept of how the Vulcans or Klingons have ever operated in the past, in fact, outright contradicts such things, it's also pretty damn stupid because it's like, okay, you have one species that keeps attacking the other, and so that species that's getting attacked is going to finally start asking for peace. Yes, granted, you could threaten somebody, beat them into submission, but basically what they said was the Vulcans started blowing up Klingon ships when they came in contact with each other until the Klingons sued for peace. And that is like, that's just weird. I mean, the Vulcans tend to revere Surik, although it's been shown that their culture has gone under changes that fluctuate back and forth. The idea that we just met these Klingons, let's just destroy them, when Surik was all about peaceful, he was, how to word the way Surik would have, as portrayed the Vulcans put as their highest role model, Surik, not to be confused with Sarek, but Surik, uh, would have risked his life for peace, not for war. You know, the absurdity of that concept is just wrong. Well, I guess maybe they were all just high on the magic mushrooms that connect the universe. I need a shot of nasal spray. Now, this thing here, the screen is frozen, but the counter's still reading as though I am live. I wonder what will happen if I... Let's see, was this the option right here? Okay. Hey, here's Halloween options. Now, I turned that, I pressed that. Ooh, now I just tipped that a little bit. Yeah, alright. So I don't know if that did anything or not. Is it doing anything? Okay, well, that's... Yeah, okay, yeah. I have no idea what this thing's doing, but... Oh, now even the counter that says live is frozen. So, let's see. Let's go onto YouTube and see what I'm doing. Alright, YouTube. Can I do this? Can I be logged on to YouTube with both devices? Alright, let's see. Alright. Okay. Okay. Now let's see if this works. Let's see. I should turn down the volume. Volume's off. And... yeah, wow. Alright, so it's still live. Hello? Yep, alright. Audio is still broadcasting. But this is frozen. Wow, am I in a low resolution? Well, look. Well, I guess you already know how bad this is broadcasting. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Can you see that? No, you can't because it's frozen. Damn. Yeah, so I guess when I tap these options for things on the screen, it's doing nothing. Yeah. Alright, so the on-screen visual effects. Not doing a damn thing. Oh, this is kind of fun. Yeah, no, it's not. Not really. Alright, so I have no idea what to do with this. But anyway, alright. Would this be a good time for me to stop? Probably, because this wasn't really all that good to begin with. But I came up with something to ramble on about, and it was just how much Star Trek Discovery kind of sucks. You know, and for a moment there, now I'm not going to even comment on that. Now, I know a lot of people might blame YouTube because, you know, that's popular to do for good reason. But yeah, wow, that screen's totally frozen. I think this is probably partly the fault of my camera. Not my, well, it's just not a camera. It's my cell phone, one of my cell phones. Yeah. But this would be a good chance for me to check what's in the oven. You see, I was making myself some French fries earlier, and they're kind of the good ones, but I just turned the heat down because I figured I would do a live stream. Yeah. So, what can I say about that? But I am going to check on what's in the oven and continue to ramble. Because you know what? When a lot of people discuss stuff online, sometimes they just put up an avatar and... But then again, when people do that, they normally have something interesting to say. And I just felt like rambling in front of a camera. And I thought, well, I could make a video. But, you know, storage space, you know. So, anyway. Let's check on my French fries. All right. I'm gonna. These ones were just labeled as crispy skin on French fries. Yeah, that's what they were named. So what's special about that? Not a damn thing, except that these are the first French fries. French. I can't even pronounce French fries right. I'm tired. I'm running on caffeine. All that wonderful stuff. I'm not functioning at 100%, but I think I could pronounce my words a little bit better. Probably not. I mispronounce stuff all the time anyway, so whatever. Anyway, I'm just going to move the French fries around before I put them back in the oven. And my only thought about that is, yeah, I need the burp. That's my only thought. So I need the burp. And the French fries can go right back in the oven. And put it at a low temperature. Let's see what temperature. Not very high at all. That's right, the French fries were on all that time. And they're not burnt because I set them low. I am kind of hungry. That'd be a good reason to stop recording. Perhaps another reason to stop recording would be because visuals are doing whatever they're doing. What else is there worth mentioning? Let's see. If I tap Google on my phone here, let's see what news articles come up. Oh, Star Wars sequel you know what kind of annoys me about this damn thing? Is every time I go on to Google with this pesky little phone here, is there's an article there. And sometimes it's an article I have not seen before that didn't appear to be there the last time I loaded it up. And then all of a sudden they load a bunch of new articles and everything that was gone. And there'll be an article I was about to click on, and then it's gone. But it was something about Star Wars, and I'm just not that concerned about it. Let's see, what's this article? Box office prospects for Star Wars Episode 9 just got much brighter. Ugh. Well, Episode 7 was pretty bad. Episode 8 was pretty bad. Oh boy, I can't wait for Episode 9. What's going to happen? Oh, they're bringing back the guy from Episode 7, so it won't be bad like Episode 8. Oh, good, it won't be bad like Episode 8. It'll just be bad like Episode 7. Real great. Real great. All right. Anyway, the biggest box office challenge. What is this by? Forbes. Yeah, Forbes cares about Star Wars. All right. Well, Star Wars makes money, and I think that's why. Oh my God, I already see propagated by Russian bot accounts. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, man. When God fucking damn it. When they start blaming bad movie reviews, movies getting... When they start blaming contempt for bad movies and or bad ratings of movies on Russian bots, what does Putin care about fucking Star Wars? Oh my God. How is this? I mean, this is mind-blowing. I mean, I've seen this before. I just wasn't... I never read this article before. It just came up. Okay. This is awesomely fucked up. All right. The biggest box office challenge to J.J. Abrams' trilogy, Capper? Was never about the alleged online backlash to The Last Jedi, at least some of which was propagated by Russian bot accounts. So, they're blaming the backlash to The Last Jedi, part of which to be Russian bot accounts. Did Star Wars threaten to nuke Russia? Has Star Wars been warmongering against Russia? I mean, I'm literally not a big fan of Putin, but at least I can see him on the scale of things as like, it's like I can see him as a corrupt and evil political leader but at least I could still see him for what he is. It's like, are things perfect under? Do I think he's a perfect leader? No. Do I think he's sitting around thinking, how could I fuck up Star Wars? No. I mean, what in the? This is just so absurdly, comically, but absurdly mind-blowing that within that first paragraph, I'm seeing them blaming that at least some of the blame that, or some of the online backlash to The Last Jedi was Russian bots. Russian bots. Send in the Russian droids to attack Star Wars. The hell is wrong? Any article that is talking about movie news and starts blaming Russian bots for people realizing that the new Star Wars movies mostly suck is not what's the right word for it? It's not sane. Well, not sane works. Not sane does work. But it's not the right way of putting it. There's got to be like some better way of putting it than they're not sane. I mean, fucking nuts kind of covers what they're being, but they're not rational. They're not sane. They're not intelligent. They're not worth taking serious. But hey, they could be worth mocking. So all right. Nor was it about the box office failure of Solo, a Star Wars stories, a film that, fairly or not, moviegoers just didn't want to see. Well, I never bothered to see it. I wasn't that interested in it. But you know what? If I had thought it was merely as good as the backstory to Han Solo and Chewbacca that I had read about in the various Star Wars guides that featured information from the novels and comics, especially the novels and comics that were considered canonical to the old Star Wars universe, which is now known as Star Wars Legends, the old expanded universe of Star Wars. If it had been nearly as good as that, I would have wanted to see it. I would have been interested. I would have been like, you know what? That'd be kind of cool. But you know what? It kind of sucked. At first, I actually heard a review from somebody that actually liked it. And it kind of made the movie sound good. And I thought, you know what? That's kind of close to what I pictured. Then I heard somebody who didn't like it go into more detail. And it's like, a lot of those details ruined everything that was good about it. But I haven't watched it, so I'm not going to judge it yet. I'll just say that episode 7 and 8 both sucked. Rogue One, not so much sucking on Rogue One. Rogue One, I fell asleep during Rogue One and never got around to rewatching it. But it was going all right, I mean, I was tired at the time, and it really wasn't an amazingly interesting movie, but a hell of a lot better than episode 7 and 8. Anyway, a film that moviegoers just didn't want to see. It's always about the sheer amount of a very big demographic. Alright, I need to take another dose of caffeine here from my Monster Energy drink. It's ultra red. Shouldn't it be infrared and ultraviolet? I don't know, but it's ultra red. Alright, a little more energy drink in my system. Alright, gonna get this right. Gonna get this right. Fuck it, we'll do it live! Alright. It was always about the sheer amount of a very big and demographically linked movies opening just before Star Wars Episode 9, when the 9th episode opens in the U.S. Alright, what the fuck are they talking about here? On December 20th, 2019, but now, just within the last month, the Rey-Kylo finale no longer has to worry about Wonder Woman 1984, James Bond 25, or Death on the Nile. So that's 2 potentially huge and leggy tentpoles and 1 adult skewed biggie off the table. Well, they're basically saying that's going to open without any competition. Yeah, oh yippee! It's gotta make money because it's not gonna have any competition. We got word that Paramount Viacom Incorporated is moving the Tim Miller directed, James Cameron produced Terminator reboot from November 15th, 2019 to November 1st, 2019. That Skydance flick, along with Sony's Charlie's Angels reboot, are both moving to November 1st, a slot recently vacated by Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman 1984 after it moved to June 5th, 2020. This comes on the heel of Daniel Craig's James Bond 25 trading Danny Boyle for Carl Fukunaga, is that how that's pronounced? And moving from November 9th, 2019 to February 14th, 2020. Oh, and thanks to the Disney Fox deal, Kenneth Branagh. So basically they're listing off a bunch of movies that moved around. And I'll skip to the bottom of them mentioning other movies that I don't care about, which, actually, no, that's the last one, but they're just ramble. They say more, but anyway, that paragraph ends with, and that's excellent news for Star Wars Episode 9. Yeah, the best news that Star Wars Episode 9 could possibly get is it's not going to have any competition. Wow, yeah. Well, at least they're admitting that the last hope for new Star Wars movies is no competition. Because, there's going to be people out there that are drunk and just want to go see a movie. They don't care what's in the movie. They just want to sit down in a theater. Maybe one of them will jack the other one off in the seats while watching whatever's on the screen. Maybe they'll jack each other off while they're watching the movie. Who knows what their plans are, but they just want to go to a movie theater, smuggle in some vodka, and eat some overpriced popcorn. There's a lot of moviegoers that are just going to want to do that, and they're not going to care what's in the theater. If people really cared what was in the theater, how could you possibly explain the movies that actually make money? I mean, really, did anybody go to a fucking Transformers movie and think, I want to watch a really good story right now. I know, let's go see the new Transformers movie. No, they didn't. Well, they might have with the first one. With the first one, they thought, wow, sentient robots, we think of what they did with the kids' cartoon. This story was sentient robots from space that can turn into things. Who knows, with a really great creative writing force, what could be done with a story that it now has that imagination of that cartoon that many people knew it when they were children, and then when they grow up to have like an adult sense of realism added to that level of wonder and awe and just plain imagination. Mix that together. What wonderful stories you could do. And then instead you get a Michael Bay movie. It's like, no. Once you saw the first Transformers movie felt kind of weak. It felt like a weak pilot episode. So really you didn't know what the second one was. After the second one, you knew that things were pretty much fucked. Alright, yeah, but anyway, yeah, if the Transformers movies ever were able to make money, and I'm talking about the live action ones, because the cartoon one was actually really kick-ass, but if the Transformers movies can make money, then Star Wars can make money. The biggest trick they need is to just not have competition. Though somehow the Transformers movie... How did the Transformers movies make money? I don't know. I mean, like I said, people don't care what they're watching a lot of the time. Let's see. If the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton Terminator reboot was going to qualify as competition, Fantastic Beasts... mispronounced that. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them earned 85 or 80. Oh my fuck! I'm not even pronouncing percentages right. 86.5% of its 234 million. Anyway, they're just going on basically. They're talking about more movies, money they made, and basically, I'm skipping forward. The Star Wars. Another shot of caffeine. I really should take a nap, but that's not what I'm gonna do. More caffeine. Because sleep is for losers. Alright. Uh, the Star Wars franchise can indeed be affected by potential competition. Spider-Man stunning 114 million debut and leggy 403 million domestic run put a hurt on Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, which came in at apparently 310 million in the summer of 2002. Yeah, so basically they're saying it's possible for a Star Wars movie to make less money than its competition. Yeah, what a surprise. I mean, Star Wars is like an absurdly bloated movie concept. I mean, when it comes to like just sucking up cash, somehow Star Wars does it. I mean, I'm not completely hating on Star Wars. I thought Episode 4 was a great movie. And I also thought Episode 3 was a great movie. And I thought Episode 2 was an okay movie. And since some people don't like it when you criticize the original trilogy, I won't say what I feel about Episodes 5 and 6 because I don't have a good feel. I don't have a good opinion of Episodes 5, 6, or 1. Man, 1 was bad. Not as bad as 7. At first I thought, you know what, well, at least I'll say about 7 that I don't hate it as much as Episode 1. And then I stopped and thought about it. Yeah, but I can get through watching Episode 1 a lot easier than Episode 7. And it's like, holy crap, I hate Episode 7 even more than I hate Episode 1? Which really, I don't hate Episode 1. I'm just disappointed by it. I remember the first time I watched Episode 1. It was back when people still... It was at that point in history where it had come out popular, people wanted to see it, and people were afraid to criticize it. And I didn't really know what was going on at the time. I just know people had talked about how great it was to finally see Episode 1 and how wonderful it was. And then I saw Episode 1. Granted, it was on video at that time, but I hadn't heard a lot of the online complaints about it because I didn't follow Star Wars. But those were probably already coming out. I just heard people worshiping the ground that Episode 1's light reflected on from the movie's theater screen, you know. All that I heard was like praise of Episode 1. It's so great, we got Episode 1. It's the most wonderful thing ever. You know, it's all I ever heard about Episode 1 was praise. Then I watched it. And I was like, what the hell was that? People went on about how great this was. This was the thing that was advertised over and over again like the best movie ever, and people talked about how wonderful it was. It's like, what the hell was that? The whole experience of the positive ratings and everybody going on about how amazing it was, and then you actually watch the damn thing and it's like, what the hell was that? And I don't just mean the movie, I mean all the hype around it. It's like, what in the hell was that load of crap? But anyway, you know, I can watch Episode 1 and it's easier to get through than Episode 7. Or Episode 8. Anyway. I should check on my French fries. Let's see. I'm going to turn that back a little bit there. Let's see. The French fries are... They're not burning, but they're alright. Alright, so... Basically, this article is all about how Star Wars can be hurt by competition. The new movies suck, but they're not willing to admit they suck. But you can basically tell they suck. Let's see. I'm just kind of scanning through to see if there's anything worth getting attention. I'm talking about Force Awakens, Oldie Kid, Friendly Being Town with Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwreck, something about the Good Dinosaur, Spectre, Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2, and blah 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 whatever. Force Awakens, Sisters, Hateful Eight, Joy, whatever. Anyway, damn it. Let's see. I don't see anything more, but I would say what really tops this article off, what was really the most amazing thing. Oh, cool! Sonic the Hedgehog. We'll see if Sonic the Hedgehog due November 9th actually comes out of schedule. Huh. I'm kind of curious what Paramount will do with Sonic the Hedgehog. Could be good, could be bad. I mean, the Sonic the Hedgehog concept obviously can be used for great storytelling. The Saturday morning cartoon was pretty amazing, while the weekday afternoon cartoon sucked. Then uh, Sonic Underground was nothing really special, but the Sonic animated movie from Japan was kind of cool, but not quite what I think. What not quite what I'd want, but it was interesting. The Archie comics evolved into a pretty amazing overall usage of the character for storytelling. That's kind of cool. Um, Sonic X was kind of disappointing, but largely because it wasn't so much that it was specifically bad. It just was. It's like it recycled stories from some of the more recent games, or what games were recent at that time. Recycled those plot lines, but not as well as they were portrayed in the games. Though that could be a matter of translation, since it was actually made in Japan, and a lot of those people tend to water things down when they bring it to North America. Um, so there's that, but. Now, the Sonic video games. The Sonic video games are filled with great concepts right from the start, which became full-blown, great, complex, and interesting stories by the era of the Sega Dreamcast. And onward for quite a few years. In fact, the plot lines of the Sonic games gave video game players a reason to come back and want more from that great franchise, even as the gameplay went to hell. I mean, you could tell there was an attempt at telling a really amazing story in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, but you had to suffer through horrible gameplay to get it. Great story, amazing soundtrack, painful gameplay. Sonic Unleashed was when the stories started getting pretty weak. And that also had really sucky gameplay. Actually, that one, I played through them both, and that one was worse to get through than Sonic 2006. It was less glitchy than Sonic 2006, but managing the glitches wasn't nearly as hard as just dealing with the crappy design of Sonic Unleashed, especially like the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 version of the game seemed to be like the better designed game at first, but then you realize like the way they set up the controls and other things like that, it just became the crappier game. But it was a more complete feeling game. I remember the Wii game. You could play that one with the GameCube controller, and that actually wasn't bad when you were playing as they called it the Werehog, those settings, the nighttime stages. But when you're playing as the regular Sonic the Hedgehog stages, that sucked horribly on the Wii version of the game. Anyway, yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Terminator movie, blah, 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 whatever. Showed us that a Star Wars movie and a kid target anime musical can coexist. Alright, yeah, perhaps I skipped too much to even bother contemplating what they were getting at there. But I'm just scrolling down. I see the word Star Wars Episode 9 and Star Wars mentioned a bunch of time. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, all that just kind of sucks. All that kind of sucks. All that kind of sucks. Yep. All right, so that's just some pretty lame articles on Google. All right. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna exit out of that. Let's see. It's all movie news on this. Marvel star comes to the rescue with a huge Avengers 4. I'm gonna guess it's a sport. I don't care that much about it. That's no moon. Scientists find evidence of supermassive black holes merging. Oh, that's kind of cool. Star Trek's beloved Geordi heading to Halcon. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see. Never did get to go to Halcon. Always wanted to. Last year I didn't really want to go on my own, and I asked one person if he wanted to go, and he wasn't available at that time, and it kind of snuck up on me, so I wasn't really ready for it anyway. And then the year before it, somebody I knew was going, and then they made such a big deal out of the fact that they didn't seem to want to go with me. I was like, I'm not going there, and I'm gonna encounter them. So the last couple of years I never really got there. But I did make it to the Spring Geekwinox. That was kind of cool. At least I made it to that, even if I never get to Halcon. Of course, Halcon is apparently a lot bigger than the Spring Geekwinox. But bigger doesn't mean better. Although in this case it probably does. Alright, Star Trek's beloved Geordi heading to Halcon. Let's see. So LeVar Burton portrayed the Enterprise's chief engineer, Geordi LaForge, and he's also one of my favorite characters in the show or in general. Geordi LaForge. Next Generation, he showed up with Brent Spiner. Anyway, they're talking about that picture there. Oh, when is Halcon? I guess it didn't already happen. I was figured that I probably missed it again this year already. Made it to the spooky Halloween something or other. I don't remember what that was called. Alright. Published 23 hours ago. Updated 6 hours ago. So, yeah. Alright. When is Halcon? When is Halcon? Let's see. Damn it. I don't know. Anyway, with everything that's going on, I probably won't get there anyway. So, you know. I figured I had already missed it. And exit out of this, exit out of that, and oh, there's something about cryptocurrency. All right, comic book reviews. Oh, look, here's something. We're definitely away from movie news now. Packages containing potential explosive devices sent to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, it's Hillary Clinton, then a comma, Barack Obama. So that means there must be somebody else on this list as well, too. The Intellivision's Amco Retro console to launch in 2020. You know, one of the things I heard about the Intellivision Amico is it's not going to contain a slot for Intellivision games. Okay, why would you resurrect the Intellivision name, make it a retro console, and not have it work with the actual game cartridges? There's probably going to be some download-only crap, which I'm pretty sure it is, because if it's not going to have a cartridge slot, a card slot, or a disc slot, you know, it's probably... Maybe it has a place for an SD card, I don't know. But if it's download-only, it's like, fuck that. I mean, what's the point in a console if it's going to be download-only? Put up with crap on the PC, might as well load... I don't know. Not a big fan of loading games onto my computer, but it's like, if you're going to have to download stuff anyway, then, yeah, what's the point in having a console? Though I suppose, you know, yeah, I suppose I could still kind of understand the value of it. I prefer console gaming over PC gaming, but when the consoles give up the cartridges, then, as far as I'm concerned, the consoles gave up their, well, cartridges or discs. You know, discs are fine. Discs are good, actually. But with today's technology, it's potential for, like, little SD cards to outperform discs anyway. So, I mean, you could have, like, futuristic consoles that would load games off of a little card now. But they're not doing that. They want everything to be digital download, and then they have more control over it and whatever. But anyway, yeah, I don't see any point in Intellivision launching a retro console and not having a cartridge slot for the old Intellivision games. It serves no purpose. The only thing retro about it, then, is the fact that it is going to have controllers that look like the Intellivision controller, that have like a little directional pad disc like the Intellivision controllers had. Yeah, because the Intellivision controller is one of its most beloved features. That's exactly what everybody loves about the Intellivision, is how perfect its controller was. Said nobody serious ever. Anyway, yeah, there's an article about that. I suppose I could click on it, see what comes up. Really, I should probably go get a shot of nasal spray. I'm starting to get stuffed up. But yeah, alright. The article is loading slowly. And as far as I can tell, this has not crashed yet. I could be just talking in the room for no purpose at all, since the screen froze and stayed frozen. Alright, Intellivision's Amico? I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. Amico? Intellivision's Amico retro console to launch in 2020. And there it is. It looks kind of cool. You know, it looks like, you know... Yeah, it looks like, you know, you could... Looks like you'd stand on it and it would weigh you. Yeah. It should have a little little display on it to display your weight when you step on it. Doesn't look like a console, but it looked like kind of a cool piece of technology. Sitting in the living room somewhere, I suppose. All right. And Television Entertainment has announced the Amico, a family-friendly, retro-inspired console set to include classic and original games. Oh yeah, a family-friendly console meant to draw the attention of people that are now old enough to remember the Intellivision. Yeah, let's get excited over that. The device is slated for release on October 10th, 2020, at an expected retail price of 150 US dollars, about 196 Canadian dollars, or to about 180 US, roughly 235.86 CAD. Yeah, well. Yeah, well, I mean, 150 I suppose might not be too bad if it's does anything special. You know, maybe if it included a cartridge slot. Uh, the Amico will come pre-installed with over 20 downloadable titles, including Astro Smash, Pong, and Centipede. You know, I'm not that familiar with Astro Smash, but I gotta say, you know, it's coming with Pong and Centipede. Two Atari classics, especially if it's going under the name of Pong, because that was Atari's version of the Magnavox Odyssey. But Pong, yeah, and Centipede. And Centipede, you know, that. I think Atari still owns Centipede. I mean, alright, so, yeah, it's the Intellivision, a one time competitor of Atari's, competitor to the Atari 2600, you know, the Intellivision name coming back. And it's going to include Pong and Centipede. And I actually don't remember who owns Astro Smash, but just by seeing Pong and Centipede makes me think they're licensing games from Atari for an Intellivision console. Whatever. Centipede. Each game will feature some sort of modern enhancement, such as updated graphics, modernized audio, and local online. I mean, so it's not really. I mean, It's a retro console, but it's not. It's gonna be update. It's gonna It's gonna be updated games. Whatever. I'm exiting out of that. Screw that. Screw it. Screw it. Screw it. It's something about Batman games. Yeah. Don't care. Like Batman. Like some of the Batman games, but I guess there's nothing else worth commenting on this. Oh, comic book reviews for this week. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what's left for me to look up on this? What's left for me to talk about? I don't even remember what I was talking about because it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I was just rambling, and the screen froze. Hello, screen. I see myself standing there in the middle of saying something with my Fantasy Star shirt, looking backwards because whatever. Whatever. Just whatever. That's all there is to it. Whatever. Yep, I should get a shot of nasal spray. The nasal spray bottle I have in my pocket's pretty much empty, but luckily I have another bottle or something in the other room. Okay. What's worth rambling on about? What is worth just standing here and having audio recorded? Yeah, well, at this point it's pretty pointless. I mean, there's a heater going in the background, which I could turn that off. That might make things better. All right, heater. That might improve the audio quality because it's actually decent temperature here now. And there's the there's the same screen frozen. Let's just see what do I see if I try to look up myself now. Well, is this thing still recording? Am I still online? According to this, I'm online. Not a bad thumbnail, but then I get into the actual video, and yeah, wow. Yep, there I am. A frozen image. And I can hear the very low volume coming from this. I'll turn it up. Yep, there I am. Frozen image. And I can hear the very low volume coming from this. I'll turn it up. Yes, and now I am hearing. Now I'm recording myself listening to what I just said. I'll turn it up. Yes, and now I am hearing. Now I'm recording myself listening to what I just said. Yes, and now I am hearing. Yep. Recording myself listening to what I just said. And I can even hear myself in the background of the previous recording. Yeah. Wow. What an exciting thing for me to do. Whatever. And I can even hear myself in the background of the previous recording. Yeah. Wow. What an exciting thing for me to do. Whatever. Yep. I can even hear myself in the background of the previous recording. Yeah. Wow. What an exciting thing for me to do. Whatever. Yep. What is those? I'm not sure. Like that must be like a variation of feedback. Like there's so much delay that but yeah, I'm not sure. Like that must be like a variation of feedback. Like there's so much delay that it wouldn't be like normal feedback, but it's like all the little sounds then being broadcast and then rebroadcast. Like the background noise from this thing is weird. Would it be like normal feedback? I'm gonna turn the volume down on that. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. Yeah. I'm done with that. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything at all. Let's see. I was distracted by the stuff that came up in Google when I opened the Google app on this thing. But no, I don't think there's anything. Let's see. I don't think there's any outstanding articles for me to look up. I rambled on about Star Trek Discovery. So there's that. Yep. Well, the live stream is frozen. The internet is haunted. And yeah. Yep, the internet is haunted and yep, the internet is haunted. Anyway, so the internet is haunted, and I'm done. I'm done. I'm gonna go eat my French fries, because why not? But no, I literally can't think of anything else to talk about, and I'm just killing time at this point. Star Trek versus Star Wars. I've been enjoying watching the Anti-Trekker discuss that. I've found barely any entertainment in Star Trek Discovery. It's mostly been the entertainment of seeing other people disturbed by it, because that's a bad show. But I haven't really had a reason to rewatch it in a while. Rambling on about that. Yep, and then there is, odds are Star Wars movies for the time being will probably suck because now when a movie fails, they blame Russian bots for nobody liking the movie. That's a new special development where, yeah, granted, media companies, invest a lot of money in these things, and that makes it a very serious issue. And when they don't want to be blamed for losing a lot of money by producing materials that people end up despising, when they make movies that people despise, their new thing to go to is rather than take responsibility, try to make better movies, They try to make them worse and then blame Russia. Oh man, that is like so special. I mean, imagine you could go back in time to the era of the Cold War. Just imagine for a minute, you could go back in a time, back to the Cold War. Just think about that, and tell somebody. You know how everybody's afraid of the Soviet Union. You know how nobody really wants a nuclear war between NATO and the Soviets. But everybody's worried. Something's gonna happen and they're gonna attack. There's like this threat of nuclear war at any time. Of these two different civilizations with opposing ideologies, both corrupt in their own way, at any point could push the limit and destroy humanity in a nuclear hellfire. In the future, people are going to blame Russia for movies doing bad. Yeah, when movies do bad in the future, people are going to blame Russia. Yeah. Does that seem realistic? And then they would take you off to the asylum because this is not the brave new future people would envision. Well, no, granted that. I'd say granted, at least now we're not close to nuking each other out of existence. Yeah, except maybe we are, because there's been kind of like a status quo where the warmongers have seemed pretty complacent, and they've been pushing things. Things could be getting a little closer to doomsday. It's like, yep. Maybe one day there'll be a nuclear war over how badly Star Wars does in the theaters. Yep. Well, the world is screwed up. Its humanity infestation is out of control. And we're all fucked. Sometimes it helps to know it. I believe it was a George Carlin quote that went similar to that. But we're all fucked, and sometimes it helps to know it. And, I should end this video now. And in the long tradition of just rambling on and not really bringing the video to an end, I think I will bring it to an end. Because the screen is frozen. And, well, really, I'm just recording audio at this point, so why not? Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to end this. Oh, wait, here's a thought. The screen is frozen on the device I'm using to record this video. Record this live stream. So, I'm just wondering if this will really end. Now, I will know this when I go back and review this, but if I press where there's this X right here, will this end? It did something, but nothing that really changed the screen. All right, what if I press it again? I don't know. Well, if it didn't... Oh, I know. I should have checked my other device right here that I could have brought up the video. So am I still on? Looks like I might be. I don't know. I don't know if I'm still live or not. That's interesting. Yeah. So, looks like I might still be live. I don't know. Let's find out. Yes, I am still live. Wow. So the device that I'm recording this with, the screen frozen, appears to still be recording. All right. So probably because I couldn't press, probably because the other thing couldn't come up for me to press to actually end this. So I'm going to end this a different way. I think this will work. In which case, I might see you in another video. Probably not. If anybody watches this to the end, I feel sorry for them. Or maybe not. Maybe you sat back and amused yourself with this. You know, this would be a great way to sit back and take a nap. You want a little sound in the background? Just put on this video. It'll be fine. That'll be some nice background noise for you. Yeah, but I'm going to end this. I'm going to end this now. Let's see if this really ends. It looks like it might have ended. I don't know if it did or not. Looks like something's still going on with this thing. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to try something else here. What if I tap that? No. Okay. No.